Hey folks, Pentaman here. So I decided to make a little behind the scenes video for the Trapped in Hell video I did for my band Bonek. And what I want to do here is show you some of the original green screen footage, some of the outtakes, and basically explain the scenes that were really tough to do and how I managed to pull these off. Now, since most of the work happened in post-production, for which I used After Effects, these videos will be more or less also some kind of After Effects tutorials. Now, since I will have to somehow record my screen, I will need some kind of screen capturing software, and I want to tell you about that. But if you're not at all interested in screen capturing, then you can skip this part right here. Okay, since you're still here, I surmise you want to know more about screen capturing. Okay, I think most people used Camtasia from TechSmith, but this costs $300, which I couldn't afford right now, so I tried their freeware, which is called Jing. Now, the thing with Jing is that you can use it somehow, but it's a pain in the ass. Now, first, it can only record up to 5 minutes of video, then it simply stops the recording. Second thing is, I think there's a lower frame rate at about 15 frames per second or something, and so you cannot really record any videos or gaming or any of this stuff. But since I won't do any playback in After Effects, that does not concern me. Third thing is, you can have no gimmicks in there, you can't do any transitions or any zooming or anything like that, but I just want my screen captured and that's what it does, and that's fine with me. Now, number 4 is the worst thing. You can only save your videos as SWF files. Okay, the thing with these is you can load them into Adobe Premiere, but they will not have any sound. Now, I record my sound separately, so that doesn't matter to me either. But what's worse is that the SWF files will work for a short amount of time and then they kind of disappear. Not the file disappears, but the content will be gone. I don't know why that is, but I just use a workaround. I load them into Premiere, export them to an MP4 file, then put that one back in, and this one will work, and the SWF file won't work anymore, but doesn't matter because I got my MP4 file. Okay, with all this, if you consider all this, then you can somehow use Jing. But I think TechSmith really did this on purpose to frustrate you with Jing so that you would finally buy their real software Camtasia. But since I found my workaround here, I will use Jing for now. And since I don't know if I will do many of these tutorial type of videos, I will just save my money for now. So you can also see, if you want to use Jing maybe, you can see the quality of the screen capturing in these videos. Okay, now enough with the screen capturing, and let's get into the videos. As I said, we will be doing a lot of After Effects stuff here, so we should maybe first take a look at the fundamentals of After Effects to all get on the same page here. Now I know there are way better After Effects tutorials on the web, especially videocopilot.net, all hail Andrew Kramer, but I just want to make a quick run through the basics here so that we can get all on the same page. Okay, so let's go. Okay, since Jing only gives me 5 minutes of recording, I gotta be real quick about this. Now, we have the files we want to use on this side here. And by the way, these textures are from the site lostandtaken.com. They provide free textures, which is very cool of them. Now, we'll just drag our file over here to the project window of After Effects. And now we can use them. But first we gotta make a new composition with composition, new composition. And I'll just use these full HD settings, 1920, 1080, 25 frames. The duration doesn't really matter to me right now. So we have a new composition down here. And now we can drag our files into this new composition. But since we want a 3D environment, we first gotta choose Layer, New Camera, and I'll just pick this standard 25mm model, and now we have a 3D environment. But we've got to make all our objects into 3D objects to use them here, and so we check this box here with the cube, and now it's a 3D object, and I just gotta change its properties. The position, hit P on the keyboard, or the rotation or orientation, hit R on the keyboard. And to show them both, I'll hit P and Shift R. Now I want to change the X rotation, and I can either drag this here or just type in 90. And now it disappears because it's completely flat. But when I move it down, it will reappear. Okay, I just want to change the scale here a little bit, so I hit Shift S as well. And just make this a little smaller, something like this. Okay, now I'm bringing in the back wall. Again, check this box with the cube, hit P, I just need the position this time, and I'll just not Y, but the Z position, I'll just move this back to about here. Okay, now bringing in the right wall, and once again check this box, P, Shift R, and this time I'll rotate the Y axis, and I just put it to 90. It disappears, but once I move it to the right, it will reappear. Now I shift the Z position to make the texture right here, and we'll just put it here for now. Okay, same thing with the left wall, same procedure. Check this, P, R, and this time we'll rotate it by -270 and drag it over here. Change the Z position, maybe a little bit more, this one also a little bit more to make it wider. Now you see the problems we can get here, that there are some gaps, but to make sure that these gaps don't appear, we'll use a little trick from Andrew Kramer from videocopilot.net. You find this in his tutorial number 27, and I'll just choose the back wall and choose an effect on this one. And I choose Effect, Stylize, Motion Tile. And we just put the output width to 200. And now when I deactivate these two layers here, you see what happens. The texture is just being repeated on the left and on the right. And you can just see what this effect does by checking and unchecking this box here. Now I'll reactivate these two layers, and I'll simply copy this effect onto both of these layers. Okay, we got pretty much a room here, just need a ceiling. Bringing this one in. 3D layer, position, rotation, rotate the x-axis by 90. Bring it up, and now this looks like a room. I'll just add one more thing. I'll add a layer, new light, and just put in an ambient light of 50% to make it a little darker. Okay, and this is our first room. Okay, we want to move the camera around so we can have another look at our room here. So we're going down to the camera, and we'll just bring up the properties of the camera, and you see it has there's the position, the point of interest. You can change the zoom, the focus distance, the aperture. You can turn on depth of field or turn it off. But for now we just use the position and the point of interest, P and Shift A. Now we have here the position in X, Y, and Z, and also the point of interest in X, Y, and Z. Now this is pretty confusing to use it this way, so we'll just go back to our original state from the beginning. And now before I do anything, I'll just duplicate this camera layer so I can always go back to this position later on. And now I'm working with this camera number 2, and I hit C on the keyboard, and by hitting C repeatedly you can just toggle through these different tools for the camera. Now first up, this tool it moves the camera in the Z position. Then this tool moves it in the X and Y position. And this one rotates it. And by hitting Shift, you can, if you don't move too much up or down, you can pretty much stay in this axis. Now we have one more. This is the free tool, and you can just move around everywhere, but this just gives me a headache and I never use this. So we did move in already a little, and now we want to rotate around to the other side, and we'll do that. And now we are here, and I'll switch back to the Z tool. Now you see we are outside of the room, and I'm moving in, and there you see our problem. We don't have a front wall yet, and also the room is not long enough. So what I'll do, I'll just pick the floor, the right wall, the left wall, and the ceiling, and I'll hit S for scale, and I'll deactivate this chain here so I can change these properties separately. I'll just show you first. If I have it activated, then both change at the same time. I think I'm gonna take the ceiling, wall and left because they are all at 100, and now I can just stretch them out here together. I'll put them to about, let's say, 150, and I gotta do this with the floor as well. Nah, wrong one. This one here. Okay, now the room is a little bit longer, and we can bring in our front wall here, and again make it a 3D layer, position it and move it on the Z axis. And we also, nowhere here, want to apply the motion tile effect from before, and I'll just copy it again from here. And now we also have to scale it up a little bit, and then move it a little to the left, right, and that looks okay for now. And I hit C again to rotate, and I'll rotate it by 90 and move in. And now we can have a look here. Oh, going a little bit to here, and yeah, you see it's quite long enough. And I'll just go back to the original position. I'll delete this camera and turn this one on, and now we have the front wall blocking our view. So we move in, and okay, that looks kinda nice. Now one more thing for later use. We will not move the camera with these C tools. We will choose layer, new, null object, and this null object cannot be seen on screen, but the way we use it, we will just link the camera to this null object by dragging this whip here and dragging it to the null object. Now you see here that the camera is linked with this null object, and it will do anything the null object does. And if I now hit P and R on this, okay, I gotta first make it a 3D layer as well. And if I hit P and R, then I can now move the position of this null object and the orientation of this null object, and the camera will do exactly what I do with the null object. That for later use. Okay, we're all set up with the room. And now don't get confused, what I did now roughly in 10 minutes. First time around this took me several weeks with all the finding the textures, getting to know the program, getting to know the tools. So don't get frustrated if it doesn't work the first time, but I hope this will kind of help you if you want to set up a similar thing. Okay, moving on to the next basics, and next up we have masks.
Behind the scenes. Behind the scenes.
Okay, we want to bring in our real footage now. Before I do this, I'll just hit Control A and select everything, and then just collapse one layer, and all the other layers will be collapsing as well. So now we have a better overview, and we'll bring in the real footage right here. Okay, and now we first trim it to the scene we really want from here, and it should be something from about here to about this point, and I just trim this and move it to the front. Okay, and now I'm not yet gonna make this a 3D layer, so it won't get the so I can work with it better for now. I'm moving out a little here, and I want to get all this stuff around hidden, and so I choose the pen tool right here. And by the way, here you can change between create a shape and create a mask, but in this case, since we're not on a shape layer, it will always create a mask. And we just paint this mask here. We can either click it or click and drag and then release, then we'll get curves like this. And now just move around here and just move around the part that I want to be shown, and then everything else disappears once I close this mask. Now you can bring up the properties by hitting M on the layer, and there are your mask properties, and you can switch between different settings here, and for example subtract, so the inside part will be hidden, and some other things. I don't use them, I just use add and subtract. Okay, one more thing, you can bring up the feather here, and you can feather out the edges of the mask, but I won't use this right now. And one last thing, here this button will show and hide the mask path, and this can be very helpful because sometimes this mask path can be pretty annoying. Okay, this is it for masks, and moving on, we'll have a look at the key light effect. Okay, what we do next is called Chroma Keying, and that basically means you filter out one color from the image, and you've seen it all. There are green screens and blue screens. And why green and blue? Because there are not that large amounts of these colors in the human skin. And if you filmed someone in front of a red screen, for example, you would end up with a pretty gray face. Okay, why are there two, green and blue? Because think about it, try filming a flying Superman in front of a blue screen, that won't work. Or try to film the Green Lantern in front of a green screen, that won't work either. Now, a friend of mine had an intelligent question: in front of what screen do you film Hulk wearing blue pants? Okay, now we apply this to our footage, and I'll deactivate this for now. And with our layer selected, we choose Effect, Keying, Keylight 1.2. And with this tool we just pick a color like this. It's better to pick a darker color instead of a lighter color. And I'll just put in the settings that I use normally. It's screen gain 93, then I'll bring up the screen matte, the blacks to 32, the whites to 68, then make the edges a little bit, bring it in a little bit by minus 0.5 and soften these edges. And then another trick from Andrew Kramer here, it's put the replace method to hard color and choose a greenish grayish color here. That works better with hair and stuff like that. Okay, now we have that. By the way, if it doesn't work so good, then it's always better to to make it the green a little bit darker here in these settings, and in my experience it works best between about 45 and 60 the brightness, and I'll just put it to around 50. Okay, now we will make it a 3D layer, and you see it picks up the light of the environment, and I'll hit P and Shift S for scale, and first I'll scale it down to about 65%, and then place it, bring it down until it hits the ground, and just move it then up so it really sits on the ground. Okay, then bring it to the front a little, and I think I'll move the camera back a little more, like this. Now we can also, I will change the camera option here. I will zoom out a little bit, put the zoom to, I don't know, about 1200 or something. Let's say 1250, like this. Okay, and then I'll place it about here. Yeah, we'll go with this. And now one more thing, I'll pick a new light, and this time I'll take a spot. Oh no, I wanted to not so bright. New light, I'll put this at about 30. And also change the position. I gotta have a look at this, the point of interest here, and I really want it to be on the person, on me in this case. Okay, and maybe it's a little bit too bright, so we'll just put it down to 20% or something like this. I'll change the position. Okay, kind of works, something like this. Okay, and yes, so we have it keyed out, and next up, the last basic will be keyframing. Okay, keyframing basically means you change the property of an object over time, and you can change any property or keyframe any property that has this little stopwatch next to it. And the way you do it, you go to the point on the timeline where you want the change to take place, and then you just hit, for example, we'll change the position here, you just hit this stopwatch and create a keyframe, and then you go to the point on the timeline where you want the change to stop. And you can either put in a new keyframe like this, or you simply start changing the properties which will put in a keyframe for you automatically. Now just, for example, move it to the right, and then this is exactly what will happen here. And then we make a new keyframe for the scale, for example, and we'll just let the bastard grow like this, and got to change the Y position here, and yeah, that is a little bit of Alice in Wonderland stuff. But okay, that does not make any sense really, so we'll delete these keyframes. And now be careful where you delete these keyframes. You delete them by clicking on the stopwatch again, but if I deleted them here, you would see I would be stuck with these properties that I had at this point. So go to the right point on the timeline and then delete the keyframes. And now we're back at the beginning and want to do some sensible thing with the keyframing, and that is we want to make a little camera zoom. So we will use the position of the null object that we created earlier, and I first set my camera up and go in a little bit like this, make a little zoom like this. And now I want to keyframe this zoom, and I want it to be from here. So I hit the keyframe, the stopwatch, on the position of the null object, and it should stop at about this point. And so I start dragging out the position of the null object and bring it up a little bit more out, and that would be a zoom. So this is what happens here. Okay, the next thing that happens in the video is actually the rotation of the camera. So we hit Shift R and we make a keyframe for the Y rotation, and we would want the rotation to be to this point. But as you see, if I start rotating, it becomes obvious that we have a two-dimensional object here. So that is our first problem, and we'll have a look at this in scene number 1. So these were the basics in After Effects, and now to the video.
Behind the scenes, behind